Hey guys, thought we'd take a little drop in and see what the Eagles are doing. As you'll notice, the babies have certainly changed color a great deal. They've lost all their white fuzzy down, and they're definitely... I'm going to turn the sound down a little bit, that wind is very loud. They're definitely a lot darker than they were. They're getting all their pin feathers in now. I think they just ate because they're real sleepy and you can't see them very well, but they're moving around the nest a lot more, playing with things, getting into trouble. And Mom is sitting there keeping a close eye on them. There we go. They're starting to move around a little bit and wake up. Try to get you some recording of them when they're up and about more, because they do get all over the nest now. You'll notice they look really funny with the new feathers coming in and they're losing all that down. I think Mom's trying to figure out why 28 won't go take a nap. 26, 27, which is their birth orders, are pretty good about getting their daily sleep. 28 is an insomniac, I think. We've all been remarking on the fact that he or she, whatever it is up a great deal more and doing stuff than her older brothers or sisters. Looks like she's going to settle down finally. And at this point, they'll start pecking at food they find around the nest, but they're not self-feeding at this point. They still depend on the parent to feed them. But they are showing interest in knowing that food comes, off the body of an animal or whatever, and they will pull at it a little bit. They're kind of learning how to do it, but it's still up to Mom or Dad to take the meat off the carcass and provide it to them. As I said earlier, their pin feathers have emerged or are emerging, and they're starting to sprout tail feathers and some back feathers. And this is a time when they start really exploring the nest and tracking their parents as they come and go. They'll really watch, well, not when they're asleep, of course, but if they're awake and the parents leave the nest or return, the little heads will just zero in on them like laser sights. I'll see if I can catch them doing that for you later. Now, some of you might comment on the fact that you're kind of unused to in previous videos. Mom was either sitting on the nest to keep them warm when they were very little and it was cold out, or a lot of times the parents weren't there once they settled down and slept. Parents didn't usually kind of stand there and hover. Now that they're moving around more and can get around the nest, the parents are even more attentive than they have been. As you'll notice, the kind of crib, what they call the crib rails, are built up, the sides of the nest are built up more than they were previously. The babies are bigger, but they can get out to the edge and they don't want them falling off. So they're even more attentive now that they're moving around to keep these little guys all in check. Now, if anyone's curious about who's in the nest and in what order, all the way over on the left, the one that was awake before, so I pointed out how 28 seems to always be awake, even when brothers and sisters that are older are sleeping. So far over on the left is 28. In the middle is 27. And 26, the eldest, is on the far right. And that's Mama, keeping an eye on him. So, there you go. Good close-up of Mama for you. Look at that beak. She's just amazing. She's a beautiful bird. Look at her.
Wow. She's beautiful.
Look at the hook on the beak. They need that. That's what strips the flesh off their catches. They're a real bird of prey. And look at those eyes. They're just amazing. She keeps herself so well groomed. She's a beautiful bird. Ah, do you know what she was doing there? When they put their head back like that and open up their beak and they're not squawking. That's moving their food down out of their crop into their stomach. So when they first eat, their food goes in their crop, and that's where it starts its digestion and is mixed with grit and other things that help digest things. And then to move it further down into its other stomach and into its intestines, that's what you'll see them do, is put their head back, yawn really wide. That's moving their food down along their intestinal tract.
I didn't know that.
Beautiful close-up of Mom. And those eyes. Just think of what those eyes can see. They can be way, way, way up in the sky and see a little mouse running across the ground. They have such magnificent eyesight. You can see little fleas on her. The close-up's so good you can see fleas. Yes, yes, birds can get fleas on them. That's why grooming is so important. There we are, back looking at babies. Now, it's sometimes hard to tell, but the difference between mom and dad close up is if you look at dad, he's got black dots on the side of his beak, and his beak is a bit brighter orange, and his nares are a little bit more triangular. So that's why sometimes when I first tuned in and I'm looking, it takes me a few minutes or so to tell you whether it's mom or dad on the nest, because I have to take a good look at the beak, and I have to wait for them to turn their head around so I can look at the beak and the nares and see if there's dots and that sort of thing. Now, another question people ask is how come the babies are dark all over? Why didn't they keep white heads? And bald eagles don't get the white head until they're about 5 years of age. Juvenile bald eagles are dark all over, and that's sometimes confusing to people who will see what looks like an eagle in the air and they'll go, no, 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 that can't be a bald eagle because it doesn't have a white head. But if it's a juvenile bald eagle, it most certainly can be one. It can look totally like one, except for the fact that it's got a black head, and people can be absolutely right that that is a bald eagle. It's just a young one. It's a juvenile one. And as juveniles, they haven't mated yet. Eagles do mate for life. And they travel in bachelor or bachelorette groups, where they tend to all stay together and fly around and hunt and roost and everything together until they pick out a mate. And then once they pick out a mate, they mate for life, and unless one of the mates dies, they will be together for a lifetime. Looks like 26 might be waking up a little bit. Oh, and I guess I can also explain, some people have asked why I call them by numbers. Well, they are numbered according to the sequence of the eggs that were laid. So this is 26, 27, and 28 are the 26th, 27th, and 28th egg that has been laid by Mama. And so that gives you an idea of how many eggs she's laid. Not all the babies survived, but most have. She's a very good mom. She raises good babies. Some have been lost in their juvenile period, which has been sad. They do try to mark these birds if they can get up in the nest and mark them before they leave. It's giving you a look around the hatchery, the fish hatchery where the nest is. There's also a farm over on one side. You'll see the farmhouse sometimes. But the numbers are the sequence that the egg was laid, and then the nomenclature is D and the number. So D26 was the 26th egg she laid, and it hatched. D27 is the 27th, and D28th, which is the baby of this group, is what we name them. Because they're wild animals, we don't give them names. We don't... Animal morphosize, I can never pronounce that word. We don't give them names. We don't make them out to be human. So they just have numbers designating them. Now, what I will try to do, for those of you who are interested, is go back and look in my notes and tell you what happened to 1 through 25. And what sequence of years they were born in and that sort of thing. And I'll get that into another video for you at some point. Looks like everybody's starting to wake up a little bit. Used to be that they'd wake up hungry, demand to be fed immediately, eat until their crops were full, and then, okay, you can see the farmhouse now, the barn, and way in the background is the farmhouse. That's on one side of the area where the hatchery is. Is that a horse or a cow? Oh, I guess that's a horse. That's the farmland around the nest. Now that horse even has a name, and we know what that horse's name is. That horse is called Colonel. Coronel, as in, like the military rank, Colonel. And, oh, the wind must, either, is he pushing that gate or is the wind blowing that hard? And, looks like he's trying to get some grass there. It's a pretty muddy field right now. He's looking for some green grass to nibble. Oops. Now this is a quick shot. Oh, they moved away really fast. That was a quick shot of the old nest that they had built, and it kind of collapsed. You see it all kind of filled with mud now. But that was the old nest that quite a few clutches had been raised in. And then they built the new nest, which is where they are now. Okay, looky who. Look at this. Baby's up and awake. That's 26. She is up and awake and moving about. And the wind is blowing too. He's standing up good. As you can see, they're standing up a lot better. Exercising their wings. Learning to get around on those big feet of theirs. And if you notice, did you see them very interested in watching Mom fly off? Now, Mom doesn't go far, unless Dad's around. Now, there's always a parent. We can't always see them, but there's always a parent class close by. Usually you can tell if Mom has really flown off, which she apparently has, because they're not tracking her right now. If she had just flown to a limb, they'd be standing there staring at her on the limb she was on, which means she probably went off to hunt or something. That means Dad's close by. These babies are never left alone. So I do know this much. Every year that they have had a nest, which has been every year since 2008, I believe, Mom has laid 3 eggs every year, except for her first year. I believe her first year only 2 hatched. The third egg that she laid wasn't fertilized, so it never hatched. There's Dad. You can see Dad up in the tree. There he is. He's keeping an eye on the babies while Mom's gone. So that's why we don't see a 29, because the first year there were only 2. All the rest of the time she's successfully hatched 28 eggs. And 25 of them have successfully fledged. In 3 cases, something happened to a baby before it fledged. It did not survive. In 2014, the Decorah project, the Raptor project, put a transmitter on one of the birds just about the time it fledged, and they followed that bird for some time, and unfortunately it was electrocuted on a transmitter and died. Also in that same clutch, one of the babies fell from the nest, a baby that later got named a real name called Soar. He fell from the nest and broke a wing, and he is now in a eagle habitat, and is used for educational purposes. And last year, D25, not too long after he fledged, was found dead along a roadside. I don't know if he was hit by a car or what happened, but they lost one of the fledglings last year. But that happens. These are wild animals. Pretty much no interference from the Raptor project is done. Now, I say that, like I said, in 2014, one of the babies did fall and broke a wing, and he was taken into care. They just couldn't sit there and let him die on the ground, so they did interfere and picked him up and took him to an eagle rehab where his wing could be fixed, and he'd never be able to be let loose, but he's used for educational purposes. And they have occasionally, quote-unquote, interfered when it comes to putting transmitters or banding them, so they can track them, which is important for the survival of the species, for research to know this. But so they do know if they've lost one, if its body is found. Okay, Mom's back. She brought some fish. Looks like everybody's up and hungry. They're all hungry right now. It's a nice fresh fish she's starting to take apart and feed the babies with. Yeah, it's so hard to believe that they're a month old now. Now the big thing is growing some more, learning how to stand up and walk around and balance really well. And when they get to that part, then they'll start walking out on the tree branches. And from there, they'll fledge.